introducing Jane Britt, champion of lived expertise in policy and practice.
I'm Jane Britt. I'm a disability policy advocate working at the intersection of disability policy, governance and government relations. I'm also a person with disability. I'm deafblind. I want to reflect on what inclusive communities look like, where we're still failing short, and what research should focus on next. Accessible community for me is one that is normalised, where accessible design has been considered in streets, buildings and infrastructure, so that people with disability can move through life without having to negotiate every step of the way. So I want to give an example of this with me navigating my local streets with a white cane. I'm constantly reading the environment through touch, through that cane. So where tactile ground indicators that are on the ground that help me be able to be oriented and navigate my way, where there are cracks, bumps and also uneven pavement. But there are also things in my environment that weren't designed with navigation in mind. So scooters left across pathways, shared pedestrian spaces with bikes and other pedestrians in narrow areas, or quite electric and hybrid vehicles, which is problematic when you're using the traffic sound to be able to work out when to safely cross a road. Inclusive community is one where that negotiation isn't necessary in the first place because the community has been built in an inclusive and accessible way, and it's been designed into that environment, not retrofitted later. Inclusion is treated as compliance rather than a pathway to participation and belonging. Accessibility efforts often fail. When we think about the research, yes, what we really need here is stronger empirical evidence about what implementation actually looks like on the ground. Because for people like me navigating our communities every day, policy only matters if it translates into environments that actually work. So when policy frameworks fail, I found it's usually because of two things. One, the data is inadequate and good policy is not built on that data, especially if it's bad. And if the evidence base is weak, incomplete or disconnected from our actual lived experience of disability, the policies it's built on will struggle to deliver meaningful change. But second, there's often a lack of effective follow-through. So the research might be done, but then there's no ongoing evaluation and monitoring work to actually work out if the implementation of anything has been effective. What my hope is for the future is that more people with disability will continue to shape the research, policy and leadership. What gives me hope for the future is that more people with disability are shaping research, policy and leadership themselves. And that perspective changes the questions we ask and the solutions we design. We also know from the Disability Royal Commission that governance works best when decision-making sits close to the people whose lives are affected by it. If I could prioritise one change, it would be embedding lived experience directly into decision-making, not consultation at the end, but as leadership and governance from the beginning. Accessibility is a lens on whether communities function for human diversity. So my takeaway question for you, are you viewing your research and the people like me that it impacts through that lens?